What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast. It is Wednesday, December 3rd, as we get ready for week 14 of the NFL season. Last week, week 13. So, if you guys remember on my week 13 podcast, I talked about how in week 12 we went perfect, a perfect sweep. We won every bet. In week 13, we went perfect in the wrong direction. We lost every bet. So it's unbelievable how you can go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, and all of them came down to the final possession of the game in both weeks. The week that I won every bet, they all came down to the last possession and they all went our way. And the week that I lost every bet, which was last week, they all came down to the last possession and they all went against us. So maybe it's the universe balancing itself out. Overall, we're still well into the green for the season, so there's no reason to panic. And I've been very busy this week. I've got 5 picks released already for week 14, which this slate looks very good to me. I like it. I think there's a lot of great spots you can play on, and I'm looking at adding maybe 1 or 2 more. So if you're interested in joining us for the rest of the season, there's a prorated price down in the description. If you're not interested in that, a like, a comment, a subscribe goes a very long way as we get into week 14 to keep this thing going and look to bounce back strongly. Kicking it off with Thursday Night Football, a great game between the Cowboys and the Lions. Detroit at home, laying 3 to 3.5 in this one, with a total, very high total, of 54.5 in this game. And it's worth noting that this total took money to the over. This was 53, 53.5, 54, 54.5. Now, if you're looking to play over in this game, you're getting, the ceiling basically. But if you're looking to play under, something that's just important to note numbers wise, this is typically where we hit the cap for NFL totals. I don't think you're going to see a 55 here. So if you're looking to play under, this is where I would grab it. If you're looking to play over, maybe wait. I think you might be some buyback and you can play like over 53.5, maybe a flat 53, something like that before kickoff. So again, the number Detroit -3, 3.5 at home. I think at the 3.5 to 4 is where I would price this game. A flat 3 for Detroit seems, man, that seems really, you're basically saying the teams are even once you account for home field advantage. And I don't think that's the case. I still think even with the way Dallas is playing, Detroit's a little bit better. Now, obviously the status of Amon-Ra St. Brown, really important for this game because he's really big for them on offense. Without him, I can't back the lines in this game. If he plays, a flat 3 might interest me, but honestly, I'm just not, this is a great situational spot if you want to buy into that this time of year, where you have a buy low on Detroit, a sell high on Dallas, who's won 3 in a row. They just beat the Chiefs at home on Thanksgiving. Consecutive, the Lions lose to a divisional opponent. You get a non-divisional opponent now, a team they can certainly move the ball on. My one concern with Detroit is this just like, and by the way, you have the Lions off of a loss trend, which is 14-0 straight up after their last 14 losses, 13-1 against the spread. By the way, that one was 2 weeks ago with the Giants where they won the game but did not cover in overtime. So, but that was a huge number. Here you're getting a very small number in this game. So the Lions off a loss trend is active. Cowboys are playing very, very well. The defense is improved. Is it an elite unit? Not by any stretch, but it was so bad earlier in the season that now it's basically an average unit. The Lions should be able to run the ball on them with Gibbs. That's one thing Dallas has always struggled with over the last few years is teams that can run the football on you. And you even saw the Chiefs do it last week. They got chunk yardage when they ran the ball with Kareem Hunt. So I would look out for that. My concern, though, is how do you stop this Dallas team in any indoors environment? I mean, they're going to be indoors on the fast track, no weather to deal with. The combination of Pickens and Lamb, and with the way they're running the football now too, it just seems really, really tough. And Detroit's defense did not, I'm not saying they just got cooked by the Packers, but they gave up 30 points at home. They couldn't get off the field on keys. They couldn't get key stops when they needed it. That play to ice the game, they didn't play horrible, like I said, but it's just, I'm not sure how they're going to be able to stop these guys, these receivers for the Cowboys. On the other side, they should be able to put up points, but I'm a little worried about this Lions offensive line, which just doesn't look the way it looked over the last few seasons. This team seems to be running out of steam a little bit. Are they running on fumes? Is the rah-rah Dan Campbell thing still have it as much effectiveness as it did last year? He's calling plays now, but he's very reckless calling plays with the fourth downs. They're 0 for 7 on their last 7 fourth downs. Really tough spot. If you force me to pick a side in this game, I would either lay 3 with Detroit or I would tease Dallas up to 9, even though it's not an ideal teaser leg. But this is just one of those games where I would not be surprised if either side won. It's just a coin flip type of game to me, and the spread is kind of indicating that. If we got, I don't think we're getting there, but if we got below 3, that's the ideal spot you want to be in. I would play -2.5 with the Lions if this got below 3, but I don't think you're getting there. I think if anything, this is going back to 3.5 by the time we kick off tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. Not, the big thing for me with the Lions is the Amon-Ra St. Brown injury. Like I said, I want to keep an eye on that, see if he's going to go. That to me goes a long way because Jameson Williams is a great big play receiver, yards after the catch, speed guy for the deep ball, but he's not a down to down guy, a consistent guy that you can target 10 to 13, 14 times a game. That's St. Brown. And that's why they go so well together because he's the down to down guy. And then JMO hits you with the big explosive when you're not expecting it. Play action. That's his game. But Amon Ra is there down in, down, like just every play. Then you got the running ball. That's what makes them so dynamic. Without him, and you remember, you're already missing Laporta. So I just feel like the injuries are piling up for Detroit. The defense, even though they're pretty much healthy, it's just not there. The same pass rush is not there. The same effectiveness, ball hawking in the secondary is not there. And with the way this Cowboys offense is playing, yes, they'll eventually, because listen, I don't think the Cowboys are an elite top 5 team. They're a top 5 offense for sure. But they're not a top 5 team overall. So this emotional high they're on right now, this run will eventually plateau. I'm just not sure if it'll happen against this opponent this week. And remember, this is essentially, guys, when you're betting these games that have tight spreads this time of year, take into account the implications. This is essentially an elimination game. Like if the Lions lose this game, you're 7-6. Packers playing the Bears for the division lead next week. You're going to need help to get in if you're at 7-6 in the NFC. You've got potentially 3 playoff teams in the NFC West. You've got 2 in the North with the Packers and Bears. The Cowboys and Eagles in the East, whoever wins the South is getting it. Where's the room for Detroit if you lose this game? So this is a massive game for the Lions, and the same goes for the Cowboys. If Dallas wins this game, these two teams now have an identical record, and they are both fighting for a spot. So this is a very much almost an elimination game. So be careful, understand that. These are the types of games that I know everyone's going to want to watch. It's a lot of fun, and it's like a playoff atmosphere. But betting wise, you really need to make sure you have an edge if you're betting into these games. Otherwise, just pass and enjoy and watch it. All right, let's move over to Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern. The first game we're going to look at is the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ravens -6 to 5.5, mostly 5.5s now across the board as the Steelers take a little bit of early money. 43.5 is the total. You if you know AFC North football, you kind of know the story. When the Steelers play the Ravens, these games go under at an insane clip, and these games go to the dog covering at an insane clip. There was a stat, I think it's like the last 20 or 25 games that the Steelers have played the Ravens when the spread is more than 3, the dog covers like 80% of the time. It's unbelievable. Now, if you want to follow that and take the Steelers, make sure you get a 6. But the question to me, the big question here is, what the hell is going on with that offense? Now, Rodgers is clearly not 100%. He looked it last week. He looked horrible last week. But it's not just that he's 100%. You've got the hand injury. He took a shot to the head or whatever it was last week. But to me, it's more so that you've got a 40-plus-year-old quarterback with an archaic offense, and it's now week 14. It's just the wear and tear. I don't think it's like, oh, get Rodgers healthy, fix it. It's just an old man can't play a full season anymore. And you're starting to see it. Early in the year, they were throwing the ball downfield. Metcalf was breaking off huge plays. Now, at this point in the season, the last 3 weeks, they haven't completed a pass beyond 20 yards. They're not throwing the ball downfield. He can't buy enough time in the pocket the way he was earlier in the season. The arm is taking a little hit. The receiver, Metcalf is starting to look sluggish out there. It's just a lethargic, slow team. And just look at the way they got beat last week. The Bills, that was embarrassing, the way the Bills ran the ball on them. That was the same thing we saw on Friday where the Bears ran the ball on the Eagles, and it was an embarrassing loss at home. The same thing happened to the Steelers. I feel like it's not being talked about much because it was Buffalo. Chicago was like the big upset. Buffalo was the favorite. So I was like, all right, whatever. They beat the Steelers. They didn't beat them. They embarrassed them at home. That was embarrassing. And even TJ Watt said it after the game. They ran the same play 20 times, whatever it was. Horrible loss. Now, this is usually the spot where you would say, oh, well, Tomlin's going to rally the troops and they'll bounce back into the big divisional game. Sure, I understand it. But now you got to go because Derrick Henry. You couldn't stop James Cook. Derrick Henry, the last time they played, ran for like 150, I think it was 170 yards against them. And the rush defense for Pittsburgh as we approach the end of the season here is problematic. Quarterback play with an old man is problematic. You got this diva number one receiver that's not doesn't seem like he's fully locked in right now. A lot of issues on the Pittsburgh side. Now, the one thing they have going for them is their defensive front. You've got TJ Watt. Lamar's not 100%, so scrambling out of the pocket. We saw it last week with the Bengals. Where did that pass rush come from, right? That was out of nowhere. But they got to him plenty, forced turnovers. Now, Lamar's not going to he's not going to turn the ball over 3 times again or 4 times, whatever it was. But he is clearly, now maybe the extended rest, right? He played on Thursday. Maybe that helps. He's clearly not 100% in terms of his mobility. And they can say whatever they want, but we've seen this guy play for a very long time now. He's my personal favorite player. I love Lamar. He is not 100%. So TJ Watt chasing him now in the backfield. The one thing the Steelers have going for them is Watt is a pure game breaker. Like that game against the Bears, he literally gave them 7 points. Strip sack in the end zone, they get a touchdown. Otherwise, that game is not close. That game was only close because of him. So he can break games like that and help Pittsburgh cover the spread. To me, I lean Baltimore in the game. I don't have a bet on this one, but I do lean to the Ravens. I think it's just a better spot overall for them as a better team. And I do think the extended rest will help Lamar a little bit, but he's clearly not 100%. And they got to figure out how they can get him 100% if they squeeze into the playoffs, because if he can get to full health and they can make it into the playoffs, they're going to be super dangerous. And this is a big, big chance for them to grab the division lead and not look back, because the Steelers have a very tough schedule to end it out. Baltimore, they win this game. They're in first place. They can cruise. I think the Ravens will win the division if they win this game. So this is a huge game on Sunday. A lot of huge games this week. Next one up, the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Seahawks -7.5. Now we're starting to see some sevens pop up on the road. 44.5 is the total. On the surface, I'll give you my exact take on this game. I heavily considered buying into this game. There's been, by the way, nothing but Falcons money coming in so far in the market. Falcons Steam, 7.5, 7. Some books have popped 6.5, then went back to 7, but it's been Falcons money, majority Falcons money. I liked the spot for the Falcons in this game. I looked at it quite a bit. I wanted to fire on 7.5. You do the buy low, sell high thing. Listen, I watch the Jets game with the Falcons. I watch every Jets game. I'm a Jets fan. They thoroughly outplayed the Jets. The Jets won that game. Atlanta should have won the game. The yards per play, yardage, first down, all that stuff. They played an overall better game than the Jets. Now, it's very tough to just win games on the road, even when you do that. Sometimes that fluky stuff happens, but Atlanta's had a ton of those. They outplayed the Colts in overtime, that overseas game. They outplayed the Patriots where they lost by 1 in New England. I mean, it's starting to get so exhausting for the Falcons. They have lost so many games they should have won. It's just really rough. Now you look at the other side. So maybe this is buy low is what I'm getting at. For Atlanta on the other side, this is Darnold and the Seahawks are winning games, but there is a little bit of concern. You look at the metrics. He's not throwing the ball downfield as much as he used to. Last week, the Vikings did a really good job stopping their deep passing attack with JSN. I think they really miss Horton. It looks like they miss Horton. Where's Shaheed? They made the trade for Shaheed. He hasn't really been a factor yet. So I think you've got some regression happening here for Darnold and the Seahawks, along with some chemistry stuff. How do they fit Shaheed into the offense, even though he's familiar with Kubiak, but it's not so far, it's not meshing. And JSN starting to get, once you put 12 games on tape, teams are going to try to start to figure out what you're doing a little bit. And you saw it last week. The Vikings, they got shut out. They did, but it was not the defense's fault. The defense played a really solid game against the Seahawks. That Vikings defense is very good. So I think you could maybe see something similar here with the Atlanta secondary. They're not as good as Minnesota, but they're better on the defensive front. They're better against the run. I feel like combining those two angles of buy low, sell high, again, similar to what I talked about with Detroit, and like you could make a strong case here for the Falcons. The thing about the Seahawks is they've been so good away from home under Mike McDonald, and they've been a cover machine. But they have not typically laid this big of a number. So keep that in mind. For me, I strongly lean to the Falcons getting the 7.5. But I passed on it because another thing, by the way, the pass rush versus Cousins is super. I mean, they got to find a way to keep him protected in the pocket because he cannot move. So if they come at him with the pass rush, it's game over. So the Seahawks defense definitely is concerning for Atlanta. If they can run the ball with Bijan, I lean slightly to the Falcons here, but I couldn't get enough conviction on the matchup for me to go ahead and bet it. But worth noting, though, Falcons money has come in the market. All right, Titans taking on the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland -4.5 to 4. There's been some buy. So this was very simple. This was 3.5. Market bought Cleveland all the way up to 4.5. Market's buying it back down to 4. I think the true line's probably 4. That's where I have this game. I have it at 4, and that's kind of checking out here with the way the money's going. This is one of the lowest totals you'll ever see with 33 and a halves posted right now for this game. And honestly, it's still still like the under at 33 and a half. For a couple reasons. Listen, Shador Sanders won a game against the Raiders are so bad, it's unbelievable. He won a game against the Raiders. He then lost against the 49ers. We have full games of tape on him now. He's not good. All right. Now, is he better than Dylan Gabriel? Maybe slightly. I think they're about the same, but he's not good. So this is not a good Cleveland Browns offense. But the defense is phenomenal at home. All right. And last week, that final score with San Francisco was misleading. That was not on the defense, right? It's a lot of other things. If you go watch that game, you know what I'm talking about. But a little bit of a misleading final score. Their defense didn't get gashed or anything like that. This is going to be a huge defensive game for them at home against a team they know they can beat. So I expect a massive effort from the defense. And the Titans' defense is not terrible, and they just cannot move the ball. I mean, that game last week, I have the Titans in my power ratings, obviously by far the worst team. I have them a full 2 points worse than the next team, um, which is the Raiders. But I have them. So I don't. How much more can I downgrade them? That was unbelievable last week, the way they played against the Jaguars in a game where the market loved Tennessee. The 6.5 to 6 to 5.5 to 5. The market could not get enough of the Titans as a big home divisional dog. And they never had a chance in that game. Never had a chance. This team is truly horrific. I would not be surprised if this game looks like the Cleveland-Miami game early in the season where the Browns blew them out at home. I think that's what you're getting in this one. But I don't think it's going to be like Shador slinging it all over them. I think this could be like a 16-3, 14-6, 21-10. Either way, it all goes under and the Browns cover. I think Browns cover this game, and I think the under comes in. Just don't see any way that either team generates much offense. And but the big thing is though, like, how do the Titans score in this game? Man, it's going to be rough. So far, under money has come in. Cleveland money has come in, but we did hit the ceiling at 4.5. All right, the Colts taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Indy -1.5. Total 47.5 in this game. This is an enormous AFC South divisional game that could end up deciding the division. Now, these teams will play each other again, but this is a huge game. I saw this morning twos pop up for Indy, and a couple of them went away. There is still two out there. I'd like the Colts in this game. Now, the Jaguars just beat up on the Titans. It's going to be easy to look at that final score and say, man, they destroy the Titans. The Titans can't do anything right. All right. The week before that, they played a competent Arizona Cardinals team and won that game in overtime, but without a doubt should have lost that game. I mean, they did so many mistakes. The thing about the Jaguars to me, why I want to fade them in this spot, is not because of the line value, because not going through any key numbers or anything like that. I make the game 2.5, so I see a little bit of value on Indy, but I want to fade it because this team is incredibly sloppy. They're not buttoned up. Like, I'm not saying they're not focused, they're not good. They have talent, they can run the ball. I like the coach a lot. I don't love the quarterback, but I like the coach. They got some guys on defense that can make plays, but they're so sloppy. Too many turnovers, too many mishaps, broken plays, like coaching mistakes, even though I like him, like bad usage of like game management, timeout, like one of the sloppiest 8-4 teams I've seen in a long time. On the other side, the Colts are not like that. They're buttoned up. Now, they've been dealing with injuries lately. Obviously, Daniel Jones. They've had some regression hit them from a super, super hot start. But I think this is like perfect, like I said, buy low, sell high. Several games like that this week where you buy low, sell high, but also I think just a more buttoned up, prepared coaching staff against a team that's like kind of, it's almost like the Jags are lollygagging through like, yeah, we can do this, we can do that. We're still going to win either way. Like, I know that's not actually what they're thinking or saying, but that's what you get when you watch the tape. That's what you get when you look at the stats, like turnover differential, yards per play, yards per play differential, like many things that tell you like, whoa, this team is not 8-4. They really should be more like, 4-6 or something like that, or six, or whatever, 6-6. So it's very, just to me, two opposites here. I like the Colts, and I really thought, by the way, if we talk about, I got the major sniffles today. Talk about the Colts Texans game on Sunday. I thought Indy played a really good game. I know they lost the game 20-16. The game plan was terrific, though. They held the Texans to just 20 points, which is really all you can ask for from your defense, especially after you lose Sauce. And then on offense, they allow one sack. I mean, that Texans pass rush has been giving teams hell. They give the Jaguars hell. They sacked Josh Allen 8 times. They sacked Daniel Jones 1 time in this game. The preparation was there. The game plan was there. Just couldn't execute as much with Daniel Jones. He made a couple of great throws, like that touchdown in the corner of the end zone. Great throw. To me, I saw a lot to be like, hey, this team's playing well. It just was a bad break in that game. And eventually it's got to swing a little bit back because the advanced metrics tell you the Colts are a legit team, legit contender, while the Jaguars are not. And I want to try to play on that at this point of the season. So I like the Colts in this game. And I think last week's both of the games you saw last week were kind of indicative of that. Houston's comes in red hot. They keep them at bay. Now that final drive, right? And this is what I meant by every game I had last week coming out of the final drive. That final drive, if it's 20-16, if the Colts pull off a touchdown on that final drive and that game ends 23-20, Indy wins, how are we looking at this game this week? This is not a 1.5 point spread if that's the case. So I like the Colts in this spot to get a massive win and get themselves back into first place in the AFC South. Next game up, the Commanders taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings -1.5 at home, 42.5 the total. This is a flippity line that went through zero. It was Washington -1.5. Now it's mini -1.5. Looks like JJ McCarthy will return for this game, which I can't believe I'm about to say this, but that's great news for the for the Vikings because Brosmer looked. I mean, I'll give him a little bit of a pass. It was against the Seahawks. Seahawks are a top 3 unit. That's a great defense, and it's a great defensive coach. So I totally get it. But he did not do himself any favors. So now you get JJ McCarthy back. The Vikings schedule has been brutal, man. I was looking at it earlier this morning because the steam came in on Minnesota, and I'm like, didn't really consider the spot. And I'm like, what are the pros seeing? Or what is the market seeing? And yeah, they've played like basically 7 straight playoff teams in a row. Really rough schedule of opposing defenses. And it showed. They've gotten obliterated during that stretch. Now you get a weaker team with Washington. They did look better against Denver on Sunday Night Football, but man, that was now you got a team coming off of overtime at home that has to travel. That was it. They gave so much that was a huge effort for that game. A massive, massive showing after the bye. Is there a little bit of a right after that game? Another brutal loss in OT against a team you should have beat. It would have been a huge win. Vibes would have been great after that. I'm not sure you get the same show up from the Commanders. On the other side, Minnesota, they lost that game. The defense was excellent. This defense, when healthy, is a top 10 unit. And I think that may be what the market is seeing on this Vikings team, despite McCarthy. I mean, look at some of the games they've lost during the stretch. That Bears game where they held them less than 20 points. Last week, they gave up pick 6 and he threw a couple of picks. But other than that, they held the Seahawks to less than 20 points in that game at home. So this is a really, really solid Minnesota defense. With Van Ginkel coming back changed everything. They're great against the pass. They're now much better against the run. I can totally see now if it's Daniels coming back, who knows what he looks like. I don't think he's going to come back, though. He hasn't even been cleared for contact yet, and it's Wednesday. I think you're getting Mariota in this game, probably Daniels the week after. It's Mariota. I just don't see how Washington can put up enough points here to win the game outright. And it's a pick 'em spread. I like Minnesota in the games basically. I think they're going to win the game. Now, am I running to bet them? No, but I think there is some value on the Vikings just to get a big win at home, fueled by their defense. The offense has speed at the skill positions. I say this about Washington all the time. We talked about the Denver game last week. I said heavy lean to the Commanders because Denver does not have speed at the skill positions, and that is where the Washington defense struggles. So they were coming out of their bye healthier against a team that doesn't have like speed demon wide receivers that can cut you up, and they looked much better. They played them very close the entire game. Now you have a team that does have that. This is it. McCarthy couldn't do it against the Bears with half a defense. Now you're going to get a slower, more physical defense, and you've got receivers that can beat all you guys all over the field. If Justin Jefferson doesn't get 10 plus targets in this game, I just don't know I don't know what's going on, with McCarthy in this offense. So I feel like this is a big Jefferson game. This is a game where the Vikings can actually show some life passing the football. And they end up winning by holding off the Commanders with their really, really good defense. I like Minnesota. Next game up, the Dolphins taking on the New York Jets. Miami minus 2.5, and now threes popping up in the market. 40.5 is the total, 41.5, depending on where you look. I really like the under in this game. I think people are, and by the way, I would say I'm a little surprised to see the line tick up to 3. I make this like a 1. And even though the Dolphins are playing really well, their last 2 wins have come against the Commanders and the Saints. I mean, I'm just pointing it out. Now they're still alive for a playoff push, and maybe that's why the market likes them. They've been very good against the run, so maybe the market thinks, if they could stop Brees Hall, they could shut down the Jets. I think Tyrod Taylor's playing well. I think the Jets are showing life. They're playing harder on defense for Aaron Glenn, which I like. I think that's a good sign. Both teams, this is crazy to say, but both teams come into this game playing their best ball of the year, which is funny. When you think about Jets, Dolphins, both teams below 500, but both teams are coming off a loss. Both teams coming off a win. They're both playing well. Both defenses are competing. Both offenses showing signs of life. I think the Jets are a great teaser leg from 2.5 up to 8.5. And keep an eye on the weather. It's Tua outdoors now. Miami has a good ATS record as a road favorite under Mike McDaniel, but a lot of those games are indoors or early in the season. We're now in December. I live up here. I'm 30 minutes away from MetLife. It's going to be very cold, rainy, expecting some possible snow, nor'easter. I mean, it's freezing this morning here. So it's going to be a very, very low temperature game, windy, possibly rain. Just keep that in mind. I think, and with a total of 41.5, I think all of that lends to the fact that the Jets from 2.5 up to 8.5 are in my opinion, one of the best teaser legs on the board this week. That's about the only way that I play this game. All right, Saints taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa minus 8.5 at home with a total of 42.5. This is a game that I considered firing on this morning. I did not as of yet because I need to do something. We don't have to get into it, but I thought about taking the Saints in this game. The Saints plus 8.5. The Saints are on a phenomenal run as road divisional dogs. All right. Last 2 years, they're 4-0 ATS on the road in the division as a dog, 26-9 going way back. I know these are way different teams, but I just wanted to see like the last 2 years because when they've been pretty bad, they're still 4-0 ATS. They're 1-0 this year. I like this. I think 8.5's too high. I've got this lined, and I've been giving you my lines, right? So I had the Jets at 1, I had the lines at 4. I've got this line, guys, for Tampa Bay, New Orleans at 6. Tampa minus 6 at home. I know you get the return of Irving. The offense is a little bit healthier. Their defense stinks. And don't let that game fool you last week. Arizona, per the metrics, played them I know the final score was a 3-point, but they were up big. And Arizona had a backdoor at that spread at the end. But that should have been a much closer game throughout. So I think, with the way Shuck has looked, the way the Saints showed a lot of fight against the Dolphins last week, came all the way backdoor cover at the end for the Saints bettors. I think you see something similar here. I think 8.5's too high. I would look to play the Saints at 8.5. I thought maybe I'd get a 9. It doesn't look like we're getting there, though. It looks like it might go the other way. I think Saints plus 8.5, if you are so inclined to bet on some of these terrible teams, which I try to avoid most of the time, but this late in the season with a team like Tampa that I just think, man, you look at the Buccaneers metrics, they play like they are such an average team. And I think this could be a good time to play into that. Them coming off of a win back at home where they generally do not cover very big point spreads at home. Baker Mayfield as a big favorite in his career is like less than 40% ATS. The Saints are really good ATS as a road divisional dog. I love the way they play. Now, this team doesn't have a lot of talent and they're going to get a high draft pick, but I think Kellen Moore, man, if they get a quarterback and they get a couple of guys, he's going to turn that offense into a machine. He's a really good offensive coach and the schemes are there and you can see it week in, week out. You can see the flashes here and there, even with Shuck, who's not really that great. You can see the flashes here and there. He's playing much better than Rattler did, though, early in the season. I just think you're getting almost a full field goal of value on this game per my numbers. I make it 6, like I said. I don't, similar to the Falcons game. What did I say? At the Falcons game, it's 7.5. I have it at 5.5. So like these, it's just about, can you stomach these horrible teams if they end up burning you? Are you okay with it? Can you look back and still say, yeah, it was a good bet? what really tells you if it was a good bet is if you get CLV. And I think if you grab 8.5 right now with the Saints, I don't think on Sunday this is going to be 8.5. I think it's going to be closer to 7. So I think this is a CLV bet if you want to grab plus EV bet right now at plus 8.5 for the Saints, which I may end up getting on myself as well. All right, the next game up is the Bengals taking on the Buffalo Bills. This is a really good one. Buffalo at home minus 5.5 everywhere, basically, that I'm looking. 52.5 is the total. On the surface, first thing I thought when I saw this game, it was 6. By the way, I will let you guys know that I took 6 with the Bengals in this game. So the 6s are completely gone now, and I kind of anticipated that coming. But I have Bengals plus 6 in this one as an official pick. I also lean over. If you can get a 51.5, which some places have, I would lean over. I think this is a very good over game. My big thing for this game is, they're both coming off of wins, right? And Cincy, we saw something from Cincy last week that we haven't seen all year long, which was a really good pass rush, and they gave the Ravens hell. And Burrow played well enough. He didn't do anything crazy, but he made some great throws and he played well. Why I like the 6 with the Bengals here, and what I think is not being fully captured is the upgrade of Burrow over Flacco. Because what was the whole story narrative out there when Burrow was started practicing? And I was like, oh, he's going to come back? Why? They're 3-8. Why would he come back? They're putting up points with Flack. And everyone's like, well, Burrow coming back ain't going to fix the defense. Of course, it's not going to fix the defense. But I think one thing that everyone missed in that is that he's an upgrade over Flacco. Like him coming back, just because Flacco was putting up points doesn't mean that Burrow's not an upgrade coming back. He is clearly an upgrade because just as much as Flacco will give you 30 points maybe against an average team, he's also going to give a good team 7 to 14 or to 10 points with turnovers in his own, pick sixes, interceptions that lead to short fields, that lead to field goals or more touchdowns. He's going to give the team points as well at this point in his career. So getting Burrow back is just a cleaner, more consistent game that I think the Bengals need right now. They're showing signs of life on defense. The Bills are good against the pass, but they have not played a quarterback that can sling it like Burrow. And when they did, which was basically just Mayfield, he lit them up at home. You have to go all the way back to earlier in the season when they played like the Chiefs, when they played the Ravens. They did well against the Chiefs. The Ravens scored 40 points against them. This Buffalo defense, to me, although they've been playing well, I think it's been largely because of their opposing offenses that they've faced. They have a weak strength of schedule. They're susceptible to the run. Getting Chase Brown back is huge for the Bengals. I really think the Bengals can win this game. Burrow, as a dog of 3 or more in his career, 18-3 against the spread. Whew. And he's got 2 wins against the Buffalo Bills in his career. So I really like this spot for the Bengals. I grabbed 6. I just think it's a numbers play. And now, the 6s are gone. So I like Cincinnati in that game. All right, next game up, we're going to look at the Denver Broncos taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Broncos minus 7.5 in this one. Not much to say here. The Raiders are just unbackable. It's a home divisional dog getting over a touchdown. I get it. I can't do it. The market is showing a little bit of Raiders money coming in as the 7.5s are starting to get juiced. 40.5 the total. Maybe you lean under. Maybe I don't know, Chip Kelly was gone. The Raiders did look a little bit better offensively. Maybe it carries over to this game. There's more improvement coming back home. I just think, I think Bo Nix has 15 times he's been a favorite so far in his young career. I think he's 14-1 straight up. I don't know, man. I don't think the Raiders can win this game. Could they keep it close? Maybe if you grab a 7.5 and you just hope that the back door's open late. Now, the good thing is Denver has not covered these spreads at all this year. They haven't won a game by more than, I think, 4 points on the road. So, which was that Eagles game. So, maybe that's where you hang your hat and you say the Raiders can certainly cover this. I just don't have much else on this game besides like Denver ain't covering these big spreads. The Raiders are, to me, an unbackable team as their bottom 3 in my power ratings. Just can't do it on either side in this one. Next game on the board, we've got the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay minus 6.5 pretty much across the board. Now we're starting to see some juiced 6.5s, indicating potentially we might get to 7 in this game. Your total is 44.5. This is another enormous game at this point of the season. Battle for the NFC North. First place will be on the line. The Bears hold it currently right now. The big question for me is, now, the Bears proved something last week. I think you got to give them credit. They came in as a 7-point dog to the Eagles. They won the game outright, and to be honest, it wasn't really close. I mean, I know the game was close, literally. I think it was 10-9 late in the third or the fourth quarter. Philly was right there, but they controlled time of possession, ran the football down their throat. I think right now, and played just good enough defensively. I I I don't want to just get into this like some people think, I want to fade the Bears, I want to fade the Jaguars, these teams that show poor metrics but are winning games. I don't have anything personal against these teams. We do this every year. We find teams that we want to fade per the metrics that are doing well, that could regress, and buy on teams that could have positive regression. So I don't want to get into this thing of like every week I'm going to be fading the Bears, but just pure power ratings alone, I see value on this game. I make it 7.5, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get to 7. 5.5 was the open. It was hit in the market. A couple of services released -5.5 on the Packers and drove it up a full point. I think anything below 7, I'm good with in this game, taking Green Bay. And I really think that this is the game. We haven't seen it yet, but really much. But this is the game where you see that the Bears' passing offense is just not ready. Caleb Williams is just not ready. I watch him play in the pocket, and it's not good. Not saying it's the worst in the world, but he's just is not consistent and not accurate in the pocket. When they roll him out or when he has to scramble on broken plays, that is where he's at his best. It's almost Mahomes-esque, right? Like the thing that makes Mahomes so special is he can do it all. He's great in the pocket. He's great on the run. He's great evading sacks. Williams has that mobile element to him, but when he's clean in the pocket, he's airmailing balls. He throws it at your feet. Like, it's just not consistent. He doesn't hit you in stride. And you did see that last week against the Eagles. But they ran the ball so well, and the Eagles are so dysfunctional offensively that it didn't matter. You're not going to get that this week with the Packers. Jordan Love's playing at a super high level. His EPA metrics are through the roof. The numbers alone will tell you that right after Mahomes this year, it's Jordan Love. Mahomes is having the best season of any quarterback, and Jordan Love is right there behind him in terms of advanced like success rate, EPA, things like that. Drake May's having a great year, but he's not there with those things that we look at for betting purposes. So, and the Packers defense is just as good as Philly's defense. I mean, I would be very surprised if now it was surprising enough that they did that to the Eagles, but I'd be really surprised if Chicago's able to go bully another defensive front like that again. Because, I mean, they played weaker defensive fronts than Phillies and did not bully them in that way, the way they did to the Eagles. And when you have a result like that, I think you have to be able to read in between the lines. I think the Eagles are just dysfunctional. There's locker room issues, and they weren't fully bought in. That was not a 100% effort game to give up 280 rushing yards. And I know they're a good rushing team, but still, that is crazy. You've faced really good running backs throughout the season, and that hasn't happened. The Bears have played really bad rushing defenses throughout the season and did not put up that kind of yardage. So that to me says a lot more of the Eagles than it did just about pure matchups. Now the Packers are not going to have that. There's no locker room issues. They're playing well. They're an elite defense, especially at home in Lambeau. It's going to be cold outside. They're going to be locked in. This is a divisional game. They're not going to overlap. And now it just happened to Philly, so they're going to look at that and say, no way this is happening. So I think you're going to get a good effort from the Green Bay defense. The pass rush is obviously elite. Does that give Williams problems? He's been really good evading sacks, just really hard to get your hands around him. Can Parsons and company get him a few times? I think if they can, it's going to lead to him making some mistakes. I just think the Green Bay defense overall is the strongest unit of any unit in this game. I think their offense is far better than the Bears offense. So I like Green Bay in the game. Again, it's not a thing where I just want to fade the Bears every single week, because I faded them against Baltimore when the Huntley game, which they lost. So we got that. And then I didn't touch them again. Oh, actually the Minnesota game, they won that game. It was close late. And I didn't touch them again. So it's not like I'm fading them every single week. This is a week where I think with the division on the line, I want to get involved. So I like the Packers in this game. Also, I have a Packers future for the division from the summer, and it was plus 350, I think it is. And I really thought my only competition for that was going to be the Lions, who are now pretty, they're not out of it for the division, but it's going to be tough. But now I got to worry about the Packers. The Bears. The Packers get the Bears, by the way, this week. Then they go to Denver. Then they get them again the following week. So 2 out of the next 3 weeks, there will be Bears versus Packers. That is basically going to decide who wins this division. So great game. I like Green Bay. I lean under as well in this game. not be more so because I think the Bears offense is going to struggle. I think this is the game where you get the little bit of the letdown from Chicago after many high wins in a row. Great vibes. I think Ben Johnson's a great coach. He's going to be there for a long time. That's the good news. Um, but right now, and he even said it in his presser, they're winning in spite of the passing offense. And I think that's true. I think he's right for saying that. But we don't know what kind of effect that has on your quarterback. Now, these are professionals, they're NFL players, they're all tough guys. But Caleb Williams did have a thing in college where he was not, necessarily the mentally toughest guy. We'll see what happens. Those comments, do they have do they motivate him further? Do they hurt his confidence? Who really knows? But I think not having any distractions like that on the Green Bay side is a good thing, a plus for them. I like the Packers. Okay, Rams at the Arizona Cardinals, LA -8. 8.5 out there still. 8. Now we're starting to see 7.5s with the Rams laying this big number on the road against the Cardinals. Arizona did cover last week on the road at Tampa Bay. The Rams obviously with an ugly outright loss to the Carolina Panthers. I think this is just too many points, guys, for a divisional game this time of year. And I know the Cardinals are not that great, but this is a team that has lost a ton of close games. I mean, Arizona has, I think it's 5 games. I'd have to go back and look. 5 losses by 3 points or less, or 4 points or less. That is unbelievable. This team has some talent on it. Jacoby Brissett is playing at a super high level. That's a weird thing to say this time of year. He's playing very well. This team just does a lot of other things wrong, but they are in these games late for the most part, aside from the Seattle game they played. They are in these games late. Last week, backdoored it against the Buccaneers. I think getting a home dog, getting 8.5 is too many. I like Arizona. I know the Rams will be in the bounce back spot, but you're not buying low. Don't confuse buy low with bounce back. Bounce back means they probably win this game. Buy low means you think they're going to win this game and outperform the market. All right. I don't think that's going to happen here. I think 8.5 is too high. Now let's go to my numbers. I've been giving you guys numbers where I said Falcons 5.5, they're 7.5. Saints, I have 6. Green Bay at 7.5. This game, I have 7. So I have the Rams -7 on the road in this game. The Rams are the top team, by the way, in my power ratings. So I like 8.5, point and a half discrepancy, and you're starting to see the market move. That is your tell. I keep saying it every week, guys, but the big educational thing that I want to hammer home in these podcasts for the NFL is that is your tell. If you say, "Oh, I like 8.5, my number's like 8.5," and then you take 8.5, or you don't, but you just watch the market, and then a few days later it's 7. You were right. No, regardless of what happens in the game, you were right. Um, there was a game. There was many of these games, but I remember really vividly the Packers Steelers game. It was several weeks ago. It was a Sunday night football game where the Packers were like -3 against, or no, sorry, yeah, they closed -2.5, but they were -3.5, 3, 2.5. They blew out the Steelers. Remember that in Sunday night football? And I remember the next day, like looking at my power ratings and like not overreacting to it because the market loved Pitt in that game. Like you always have to consider not just the results, but where did the market go for the game? So it's like, yeah, like the Buffalo game. Just this past week, they were -3.5 against the Steelers out on the road, beat them, blowout, beat them, but the market closed 3. So the money, the liquidity in the NFL betting market, like the Steelers in the game. And that says a lot, okay? Because that's the sharpest info getting bet into the market. So look at where these lines move. The Saints going down, if it does, I think it will. I think the Packers will go up. I think the Cardinals will go down. That number will go down. The Vikings flipping from a dog to a favorite. Like this is all info flooding in and moving the lines. And if you can beat the moves, then you're on the right track. You will win long term. So I like the Cardinals getting 8.5 in this game, but I think it's just the biggest thing is worth noting that it has moved to 8 at some places. And now you're seeing 7.5 on DraftKings, and other books will start to follow. So it looks like sharp money coming in on Arizona. All right, let's go over to Sunday Night Football now. Houston Texans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. KC -3.5 at home, a total of 41.5 in this game. Another potentially buy low, sell high. Listen, I'm not going to say before season started because we're well into the season now, but a few weeks ago would I have made this 3.5? No. Houston's won 4 games in a row. They're red hot. They're streaking. They're winning with their defense. The Chiefs played a pretty good game against the Cowboys, especially offensively. Their biggest thing, the Chiefs this year, man, I mean, everyone talks about the one-score games. They're 1-5 in one-score games, but the biggest thing that they had last year that they don't have this year is they just cannot get a stop when it matters. They when they have a lead, they had a lead in the fourth quarter against the Broncos with less than 5 minutes left at Denver. How tough have the Broncos been? Like, that's a game Casey should have won, but they can't get off the field when they need it. Last week against the Cowboys, can't get a stop on the final drive when they need it. The Cowboys iced the game. They were able to against Indy, and that's the only reason they won. So anything above 3, I can totally get. Like, I took KC -3 against Dallas because I'm like, 3 flat, I'm in with Mahomes. And if that fumble that Dallas had on the last drive, if Casey recovers it and they go down and score, they cover that game. So it's like, and I think they would have if they got the ball back, they would have went down and scored because they were moving the ball effortlessly. Casey offense has been great this year. Now you're getting a really interesting matchup of like the number one offense metrically per the metrics versus the number one defense. The Chiefs get the most yardage per drive. Like when they get the ball, their drives move an average of 40 plus yards. No one else is at 40 or more. So they move the ball at the best rate in the NFL. Mahomes' EPA stuff, his success rates all through the roof. It's just about, can you win against these corners that the Texans have? Can you avoid the pass rush? Indy did a great job with the pass rush last week, 1 sack on Daniel Jones. I think the Chiefs can do the same thing. And Mahomes gives you that other element. He's so evasive. He's really good moving in the pocket and then getting out of the pocket. I could see this being a game where Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, they're chasing him a lot during the game, but they can't get him. And he is by far the best we've ever seen at those broken plays, creating big gains off of those plays where he's running away, looking behind him, scrambling, does a little circle, then he runs to the right or he runs to the left, and then someone's wide open for like a 20, 25-yard gain. He's the greatest we've ever seen doing that. I do think the Chiefs defense is not what it was last year, and that's holding them back this year, but Texans offense on the road is not great. They were not great last week against Indy. 20 points. I don't think 20 points gets you a win in this game. Okay, it did last week, barely. I really don't think it does in this game. I think this is a good spot to fade Houston, their win streak coming to an end. I just don't want to, I'm not going to lay 3.5. This could easily be a 3-point Chiefs win because that's just what they do. They play close games. So spread-wise, this is a weird thing for me to say, but spread-wise, I got to lean Houston, although I think Kansas City wins the game. Kind of a weird one. But that's going to be a great Sunday Night Football matchup. Over to Monday Night Football, you've got the Eagles taking on the LA Chargers. This is a weird one because we don't know if Herbert's going to play. So I can't really give you an accurate, if Herbert was going to play, this was a 1.5 to 1 in the market. I make it 1 with Herbert. If he's not going to play, when we got word of the surgery on his hand surgery, it went up to 3. Now we're seeing 2.5, settling a little bit. It looks like he could be back. It's a minor hand surgery on his left hand, not his throwing hand. So it looks like he could be back. For me, that uncertainty, because that's a big difference between Herbert and Lance. It's too much uncertainty for me to be able to bet on this game in any way. If it was Herbert, I would want to tease the Chargers up from 1.5 or 2.5 up to 8.5, 7.5. Because even if the Eagles win this game, they have not proven this year that they can win by margin, and they have not proven that they can hold on to leads. Okay, a couple of times that I've bet them, I bet them at that Minnesota game on the road where they played Wentz, got a big lead early. Minnesota was coming back late. Game could have gone either way. I got lucky to win it. The Cowboys game, they're up 21-0. I had the Cowboys in that game. I thought I was done. Cowboys come all the way back, win the game. They never score again. Philly cannot hold a lead, and they cannot win by margin. They're way too dysfunctional. Maybe this is the spot they all rally, but you know what? Chargers defense is good. It's healthy, and it's playing well. And that's the key for them is health because they lost a ton of guys early in the season. Now that defense is healthy, it's playing well. The offense is still going to struggle with this Eagles pass rush. I know the offensive line's not great. Herbert's going to take some hits. He's going to be scrambling a bit, but they've been doing just enough. Listen, the total's 40 in this game, 40.5. So I think it's a defensive grind. I think the Chargers are a really good teaser leg if Herbert plays. That's the only way that I would play this game. I'm not looking to lay the road points with the Eagles. I don't think you can trust the Chargers to win outright. It's a home dog. They haven't been good as a home dog, believe it or not. They've been good as like road favorites or favorites in general under Harbaugh, but not as a home dog. So for me, I like this as a teaser leg, but I got to have Justin Herbert playing in the game. All right, guys, that is week 14 in the NFL. Like I said, 5 early picks have been released. 4 of them are sides. One of them is a parlay. I gave you a couple of my leans here that you probably could put together, which ones are the plays. But yeah, that's what we have going on right now. Also, conference championship weekend for college football. I have one play released there. I'm going to have more on those games as well this weekend. So if you're looking to get involved, there are deals down in the profile. There's like 50% off coupons. There's an option to download the Action app where I log my free picks. You can get notifications when I put up free picks. All that good stuff's down below. If not, make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you guys like this weekend. And let's have a big bounce back week. For me, I need it. Week 14, we're in the home stretch. Thanks, guys, for watching.